Hey guys, this is Crossroads here. Today I wanted to talk to you about Palantir. Huge week for Palantir. Of course, AIPCon 6 kicked off, and we'll talk a little bit of that at the end. But what's even more shocking is that they've announced over within the last week, 17 new commercial clients. That's 17. Now, they've also announced, or they had partners also announce several extensions as well to their existing contracts. And this is very meaningful for Palantir for a couple of reasons. One is you may not have been in Palantir back in the dark ages, back in 2022, when things were bleak. Palantir traded at single digits. People said it was an AI imposter. There was a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD out there. But Palantir, of course, is where it is today, a large part because of execution of this company and because they truly are differentiated in this AI wave. Other companies are seeing it. It's not just Palantir themselves. And it used to be that when a company partnered or at least had a pilot program with Palantir, very little was mentioned about it. Now, that wasn't Palantir's issue. It was the issue with their clients, and they just didn't want it to be known that they were using Palantir tech. Now, all of a sudden you have all sorts of organizations in their earnings calls, and you have them mention just with press releases, sometimes joint press releases as well, that they are Palantir clients. And so the tables have turned. People are excited to announce that they are part of this Palantir organization. How meaningful is 17? Well, let's take a look. So here is from Q4 from the earnings slide deck. And we can see the commercial count, or customer count right here overall is this, but commercial count specifically we want to look at. And so commercial customer count, by the way, US commercial is a separate entity. It's actually growing really rapidly just by pure count, 73% year over year. Yeah, that's a little bit insane there. Probably won't do that again this year, but hey, if they keep up announcing like 17 like this, some of these were certainly in these numbers, but it's meaningful. They had 571, and so announcing 17 is pretty exciting. I mean, you can just see that quarter over quarter acceleration right there of 15% quarter over quarter. That's fantastic. And so these, by the way, are not small clients. One of those that was announced just today was Databricks. I'm sure you've heard of Databricks. And there's a very long press release that you can read on Databricks' website. Qualcomm was another big one from today. Qualcomm is a massive company, and they're partnering to work with Palantir as well, a longer press release too. These are not just little quips. And another one today was Apyrus. Apyrus is another Joe Lonsdale startup. He also was involved in founding Palantir as well. This is a smaller organization, but it's one that is using, you see this word warp speed. That's not a whole platform for Palantir, but Warp Speed is a product that basically helps them accelerate industrialization and manufacturing, especially in the United States. And so this was a pretty exciting press release. Now, as far as the other clients, they mentioned Archer. By the way, that's an expansion, not a new client. Archer Aviation that does eVTOLs. Saronic, KKR, which is a massive private equity firm. Delta Airlines was mentioned. They certainly use Skywise, which is a Palantir product that was built with Airbus, because Delta has both Airbus and Boeing planes, but they partnered directly with Palantir now. TWG Global, a massive investment firm, R1, RCM, Ursa Major, Celdrone, Heineken, which is the alcohol company, Ripcord, Racetrack, Ethicrinum, Ondas, Apyrus, KT, and Walgreens. So some of these are very small. Ondas, for instance, just had their earnings yesterday. They talked a lot about Palantir, but they're a tiny company. But other companies like Walgreens, which probably were alluded to in Q4 earnings, presented today at AIP. And let's talk a little bit about why there's this flurry of people that are not only signing up with Palantir, but want it to be known that they are partnering with Palantir. So there's, of course, we're in an AI wave. Some people say AI bubble. I think the bubble is just beginning. But there is a lot of interest in deploying AI. And we're at least far enough now that some of the companies that tried other products or tried to do this on their own, they realize, you know what? we're not getting the results that we'd like to have. And so Palantir, of course, deployed their boot camps. They deployed their AI platform as well very early into 2023. And as they were able to show people, just you'd bring your data, you'd show up at one of these boot camps, and within minutes, if not hours, they'd actually show you real results, what you can do, different inferences as well. And this is a platform that you can build on. So what normally happens is a client will adopt Palantir technology just for a small area, maybe a pilot, or maybe just one aspect of their business. And they'll see it's so wildly successful for the most part. There are a few exceptions that they'll say, you know what happens if we scale this across our entire enterprise? And so we see that that is a case with Walgreens. Walgreens was actually the first people that presented at AIPCon 6. This is the 6th summit where Palantir has invited their partners to come and show off what they were doing as far as AIP. 100 different organizations were present. Palantir does not pay these people anything. They don't give kickbacks. They don't give you a discount on the product. They just say, hey, come if you'd like to. We'd love for you to present. And so Walgreens was the first speaker. And they mentioned that they started off with a small pilot program early last year, and they developed it and scaled it to over 4,000 stores for Walgreens pharmacies in just 8 months, which is pretty exceptional. Just because they got it in those pilot programs and they realized like, hey, this can transform our enterprise. And virtually, one of the things I love about AIPCon is it shows the actual impact that the technology is having on their clients. It's not just hey, this is cool software, maybe we'll use it somehow, but they have real results really quickly. And so 4,000 that's a number of stores. 30% they mentioned gain in operational efficiencies, and 32% increase in patient engagement and pull-through just for their pharmacy side of the business. So that's something to keep an eye on. Another one that I really enjoyed as a highlight was Wendy's. Wendy's was announced as a partner maybe a little bit over a year ago. I think it was AIPCon 4, if I'm not mistaken. And Wendy's had mentioned, so by the way, it's QSCC specifically. It's the supply chain organization, one of the largest of its kind in the United States and throughout the world. But they have this massive supply chain that's very complicated. They went to a lot of different companies and said, hey, this is where we're at with data, and this is where we want to go. And they were told time and time again, that's impossible, can't do it. You got to organize your data first. And Palantir comes in and says, you know what, let's take you for where you're at and help you get to where you're going. And so they adopted Palantir as a partner. And so they connected data from over 60 different partners. So this supply chain doesn't just help Wendy's, but it's a lot of different organizations as well. 250 shipping points, 34 distribution centers, 6,450 restaurants, one system. And they mentioned that they gave this amazing use case. And I highly recommend watching AIPCon. If you only watch one, maybe watch the Wendy's one. They showed some complex issues with their supply chain. They said, oh, we have this new product that we're releasing, this promo. We need to make sure that we have enough to meet demand. And so what would have taken 15 people all day to be able to resolve and fix took him, this one person, 5 minutes. That is efficiency. That is AI at the edge. And it's just phenomenal what they've been able to do. Now, I also want to show you, Alex Karp had a brief interview, and I don't want to share the whole interview, but I do want to share just a little bit of it because I thought it was very illuminating. Karp has said this before. The market initially didn't believe him and didn't believe in Palantir when he said that they could not keep up with demand. But I think that the market believes it by now. You can see it in the price action. I know it's down year to date, and that, frankly, it ran up too far, too fast. But there's a reason why it's up so much. So by and large, international has grown a lot slower than U.S. commercial just because a lot of companies in the United States realize early on, hey, Palantir has something different, and they help us really build AI at the edge and implement it to gain massive efficiency gains, and that gives them a key advantage. And now maybe we're at the beginning of the second wave of this. Second wave of this is when competitors look and see, and they're like, oh man, our competition has partnered with Palantir, and we've seen the results. They're real. We're losing our edge. And so then they have to adopt Palantir technology or try to do it on their own, which has not been working, and to catch up. And the final wave is really when basically a lot of businesses out there realize, okay, our AI strategy is not working. We've tried to go on it on our own for a long time, and it's simply just not working. We need to build and build efficiently. That one's a little bit further out as well. So as far as Palantir, this has been a really incredible few days, just with this flurry of massive partnerships. By the way, it is not coincidental that they announce all of these all at once. Had to do with the timing AIPCon, and for a few companies as well, like Ondas, is simply when they had their earnings calls that were mentioned. And so just an interesting time to be a Palantir shareholder. Now, I do want to touch on the stock a little bit. So let's take a look at that price action. And here is Palantir's stock, and you can see the price action where it certainly peaked here in mid-February at 125, which is just, yeah, amazing as a shareholder, but I personally wouldn't be buying it there. And we can see that this gap has been filled from earnings and it's come back a good bit. We can see that Palantir goes through those peaks and troughs from time to time. This is an exception. Even RSI itself is not oversold at this point, and they are up a massive amount. Now, I misspoke earlier. I said that Palantir was down year to date. It was for a little while. It's up about 6% year to date right now. And honestly, it may be one of these times where Palantir just needs to consolidate as a stock, even as the company grows. If you look at the PE, if you look at the PEG, if you look at pretty much any other multiple and compare it with SaaS, even their phenomenal Rule of 40, it's not a cheap stock at this point, even though it has pulled back quite a bit. Now, for myself, I took some gains at a much lower amount than this earlier in the year, or last year rather. I don't regret doing that, although obviously I do wish that I waited a little bit longer. But I'm still holding Palantir as my largest position. I plan to continue to hold it. I have some underwater, barely underwater covered calls that I'm excited to roll those out at a much cheaper price, or maybe they won't be underwater for much longer. And I also need to be thinking there is a lot of pessimism in the stock market right now. That can continue for some time, especially as there's a lot of uncertainty, not about Palantir, not about AI, but it's a broad market. Sensitive, volatile names like Palantir tend to get hit, especially those that ran up really, really hard. And so I'm already beginning to think is like, okay, well, what if we get to still looks extreme for multiples, but I think it's a great value personally. If we get to about the 55 range, I'm going to start slowly adding to my Palantir position. I've not bought any meaningful shares since 2022. I should have. I would have profited immensely, but it was back in 2022 was 90% of my position. So that's one of the reasons why it's basically half of my portfolio right now. So I am certainly happy either way as a shareholder. If we go back up, great. I own a lot of Palantir. If we go back down or we consolidate for a little while, it gives me time to get out of those tough covered calls and hold on to my shares, which I plan to do pretty much no matter what either way. This is a company that I plan to be in over the next 10 years. It's very clear to see the long term, the trajectory of where the company is going and where its stock likely will follow. In the short term, anything can happen. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you have Palantir, if you've taken some gains off and money off the table, if you bought more already, what you thought about the AIPCon 6, if there's any highlights in there particularly for you. Love to hear it in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, commenting, and subscribing. For now, happy investing.